Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio. So today, we are going to be looking at the age-old question of what happens when you cross a Terminator with a turtle. You get Turtonator, one of the best named Pokemons from Sun and Moon. He now has his own GX coming out in Guardians Rising. Is it any good? Short answer, yes. Long answer, well, let's have a gander. Being a fire Pokemon is good. It means he's hitting for weakness against things like Lurantis and Decidueye. Pokemon that we are expecting to be good in the upcoming format. Being a basic is a huge help to Turtonator, because he can use Fighting Fury Belt, giving him an extra 40 HP, meaning his attacks do 10 more damage, although we do have Choice Band, which allows you to do 30 extra damage to EXs and GXs, and as we talk about in a minute, you may even be wanting to play Bursting Balloon here. Also, being a basic means you can use Max Elixir, whereby it just helps you to get the energy out early enough, and when we look at his second attack, Fire Colourless, slightly awkward attack cost. Now, he is weak to water, which could be a pain for things like Lapras, Greninja, or even Volcanion EX, and its dual fire-water type. But if you're really worried about weakness, you can use Altar of the Sun, which will actually take away the weakness of all fire Pokemon on the field, including Turtonator. Although this is one of those stadiums your opponent controls. Your opponent can replace a stadium before they attack, so they essentially turn on your weakness, and then they get the KO. Hey-ho, these things happen. Now, the first attack can be used for a double colourless energy, and is pretty nice. 20 damage, not very good. But if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack during your opponent's next turn, place 8 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. That, ladies and gentlemen, is phenomenal. You basically put your opponent in an annoying situation where they've basically got to attack you, but then they're going to take 8 damage counters for doing so. And if you want to really up the annoyance factor here, you could even play Bursting Balloon. I told you we were going to get back to him. And then your opponent would actually take 14 damage counters if they went and hit you. Now, there are ways around this, of course, but unless your opponent can find a way around it, 14 damage counters, that's a lot. Now, speaking of ways around it, your opponent can just attack something else using cards like Lysander and Escape Rope, but this isn't the end of the world because you're forcing them to have to. You are telling your opponent you have got to waste your resources. You can't play that Sycamore you want to play to draw more cards. You've got to play a Lysander. You can't save your Escape Rope for late game when you need it. You've got to use it now. Now, we've seen with Bursting Balloon, people have been doing this for a long time, but still, it's making your opponent make decisions that they don't want to make. The other option, of course, is that they can play Pokemon Ranger, but that doesn't get around Bursting Balloon, only the effect of this attack. I like it. What you could even do here is play Turtonator in a Vileplume-centered deck so that your opponent can't Versus Seeker for Lysander, they've got to draw into it, and they can't play cards like Escape Rope, greatly increasing the odds that they will just have to attack into Turtonator. And of course, you know, that's going to be awkward for them. It's going to force them to take damage. It's going to make Turtonator a very, very nice attacker. And just for a DCE, you could even play the whole retreating around, forcing your opponent to have a Lysander to take a KO trick, if you wish. Now, the second attack is 160 for free energy, a fire, and a colourless, and you have to discard 2 fire energy attached to Turtonator. Not the end of the world discarding the energy, we'll see why in a minute. What I like about this, it's discarding 2 energy, which means if you've got 5 energy on Turtonator, discard 2 of them, you can still use the attack the following turn. This is quite good. Now, you've got to discard the energy, but there's plenty of ways you can get energy on him. I've already told you about using Max Elixir. What you could do here is attach a double colourless and then discard that. And then just every turn, attach a double colourless, discard it, without ever discarding the fire energy on him, if you so wished. You could use the non-EX Volcanion as a starter Pokemon here, just attaching energy to your Turtonators on the bench, while just getting a bit of damage, building up your board, and then getting the energy on that way. Or you could use the GX attack. Speaking of which, we're not there yet, because we've got to talk about the maths on this attack. 160 is quite good, but it's not quite enough to KO anything. 190 with Choice Band is much better. It will KO EXs. It will KO basic GXs. But unless you're hitting for weakness, it's not going to KO stage 1 or stage 2 GXs. And it's not going to KO EXs with Fighting Fury Belt. Take something like an Yveltal. 170 HP means you can KO using either a Fighting Fury Belt or a Choice Band. But as soon as they put a Fighting Fury Belt and go up to 210, it would take a Choice Band and playing Professor Kukui as your supporter for the turn in order to get a KO here. And that is far from ideal, ladies and gentlemen. Far from ideal. Now, speaking of the GX attack, I'm aware we weren't, but I needed a segue. I really like the GX attack here. It is very reminiscent of Solgaleo's GX attack. 1 fire energy. Attach 5 fire from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. Remember, GXs are one of any description per game. I am a huge fan of Turtonator GX, and I like his GX attack, and here's why. You can use this turn 1. Now in Expanded, we've got Battle Compressor to get the energy in and get it out again with the GX attack. Not as easy in Standard, but of course, as a bunch of people have already pointed out, you can just use Volcanion EX. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Volcanion EX combos with Turtonator beautifully. Now, I mentioned how the numbers were difficult to hit using his attack. Well, actually, they're not so difficult to hit because of Volcanion EX. So anyone that's going to put an angry comment telling me that I missed Steam Up, oh no, that's right. I deliberately waited. Don't know why, it just seemed like a fun way to plan the video. So, this does 2 beautiful things. First of all, it adds 30 damage to each of your attacks, which means 4 Steam Ups and Trap Shell actually does 140. And then 8 damage counters go on them if they hit you next turn. Or I should say if they damage you next turn. That's pretty nice. It means that your second attack, Crimson Flare, 1 Steam Up, 190. 2 Steam Ups, 220. And 220 is going to be enough to KO most things. Even if it's not free Steam Ups. And you get to be doing 90 plus the 160 is 250, with a Fighting Fury Belt is 260. So, I like Choice Band on Turtonator when you're not using Volcanion's ability. But where you are using Volcanion, I think you go Fighting Fury Belt, you've got 230 HP, and the beautiful thing here is that the energy you put into the discard with Steam Up, you can then attach either using non-EX Volcanion, like we've been doing all along, or using Turtonator GX's GX attack to attach 5 of them in one go. This is beautiful. Now, it doesn't have to be used with Volcanion EX. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. You can play it with Vileplume and really take advantage of its first attack, or you can play it with Fighting Fury Belt and Volcanion and really just go for the big hit. Do remember that with Volcanion being a basic ability, you've got to look out for things like Garbodor and Silent Lab and Hex Maniac and Alolan Muck. They are all slightly awkward. One other thing which I should mention here, the new supporter card Hala, which I did a video about just a few days ago, allows you to shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 4 cards, or 7 if you've used your GX attack. Turtonator GX's GX attack here is very much an early game attack, so let's celebrate the fact here that Hala actually becomes a lot better in this deck, or with this Pokemon I should say, than it would in a whole bunch of other decks. There is a lot of synergy here. There is a lot to like about Turtonator. High HP, all the benefits of being a basic Pokemon. He combos nicely with Volcanion. The first attack can combo nicely with Vileplume. You know, Fighting Fury Belt allows him to tank quite a bit. Useful GX attack, good attacks in general. He's a very good Pokemon. I'm giving him 4 Wassies. He's not up there with Tapu Lele, but he's a very, very good Pokemon indeed. And certainly I could see, if nothing else, a couple of these as standard going into Volcanion decks. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. I would be delighted if you would be nice enough to use them both. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.